Hi, it's Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome to Career Coach Office Hours for February 4th. Woohoo! I spend time twice weekly, Tuesday at 9:15 and Fridays at 9:15 Eastern, talking with you about different elements of job search, hiring more effectively, management, leadership, different workplace issues, and how to handle them. And I'll simply say, if you have a question about any of those areas, please put your question into chat so I can answer it today. Now, I also want to say, normally I'm pretty flexible about my end time, but not today because I'm presenting to a group online today at 10 a.m. I need a couple of minutes to get ready for that. So I'm going to hold it to a tight 30 minutes where I have to be off in 30. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. And as I always do, well, let me back up for a second and say, in addition, there's a lot more available at my website, which is thebiggamehunter.us. You can schedule time for a free discovery call, a coaching session, visit my blog, which has more than 12,000 posts in it. Find out about my courses, books, and guides. Also, subscribe to JobSearchTV.com. Sorry, the J wraps. I have to figure out how to do that a little bit differently. And my podcast, No BS Job Search Advice Radio. In Apple Podcasts, it's the #1 podcast for job search with more than 2,300 episodes currently. So I've got a lot there to help you. And it's also available on Spotify as a video podcast, Amazon Music, Google Play, wherever you listen to it, to podcasts, it's available for you. So as I do when I start the show, these days I'm doing a coffee toast. A toast to those of you who manage and lead. And you're, I don't want to say kind because that gets misunderstood, but you care about the people who report to you and want the best for them. You eliminate friction in their way from getting the job done that you want them to get done. You know about them. You know things about their personal lives, maybe their parents' name or their wife, husband, partner, or kids, because it matters to you to know. You act in an empathetic way when they're having struggles. You're not barking at them, but you care about them because they matter. And their success will lead to your success, and you understand that. Let me take the hat off because I'm getting some shadow on my glasses. So I'll just simply say a toast to those of you who manage and lead and who care about the people on your staff, that they advance, they succeed, and they get ahead. Now, before I go to questions, I'll just simply say the U.S. jobs report came out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern today, and it was better than expected, with an expectation of 150,000 jobs, but it was 467,000 jobs. One thing is very clear. It's all guesswork for the people who prognosticate this stuff. And that was when job losses were higher, and now where job losses are less, and job creation is better. So it's all, they're making it up, and it's all a figment of their imagination. They also point out the unemployment rate went up from 3.9% in December to 4% in January. I haven't had a chance to go through this, but I thought I would acknowledge a strong market there. And I'll also say that one of the fun things about all of this is that job hunting is kind of like an 8th grade dance with the boys on one side, the girls on the other, and if you're gay, there's no shot for you whatsoever. So you wind up in situations where there's a disconnect sometimes between what the labor market's looking for and what you have. So don't get disappointed by this jobs report. If you're struggling, you just need some help in navigating the system, and that's really what I do. So someone put a message into chat. Do you find people who reach a crossroads of doing the right thing or becoming yes men in order to survive corporate politics? Oh, yeah. What happens is people are um, conditioned into systems. So that's my first question for today. Do I find people who reach a crossroads of doing the right thing or becoming yes men or yes women in order to survive politics? So the answer, of course, is yes. And it happens a lot sooner than a long period of time. It starts pretty quickly because, after all, from the time we were little, we were conditioned to be obedient boys and girls. It's in school, it's shut up, do what we tell you to do, regurgitate a bunch of things when we tell you to do it, or else. So by the time we get into the workforce, we're pretty well trained to become yes men and yes women. So every once in a while, you get a maverick, like the classic maverick is Steve Jobs, of course, who was a fruitarian with body odor when he worked at HP. So I'll simply say, yes, it can happen, but we are trained to be obedient, or else we get written up. We don't get the raises we want. There's promotional opportunities get closed to us. Signals are sent that we're being bad. And we know it. We know that they don't like it. So yes, it's not just it's not just in school. It happens in the workforce very, very regularly at all levels. And it takes someone with some courage to break through that and to figure out ways to communicate in ways that are understandable to their leader, so that they don't feel threatened, they feel supported, and the ideas get through. So if one of you is stuck in this kind of a situation where you feel defeated, because that's really what starts to happen. You lose your voice and you become an obedient servant again. If you're starting to feel that way, it's time for you to change and find out ways to talk to people in a way that they'll understand what you're trying to communicate, and that you can start changing people's minds. So I hope you found that helpful. Sorry the person didn't identify themselves by name, but as a LinkedIn user, that's okay. So let's go to the first question that was emailed to me. And if you have a question for me, you can email it to me in advance of the show at thebiggamehunter@gmail.com. And in the subject line, put the phrase office hours. This way I can kind of organize myself in anticipation of the show and have some questions lined up to answer. Why can't I find a job or even get an interview? I think I'm back to the 8th grade dance. Just because firms are hiring doesn't mean that they're hiring what you're selling. So that becomes problem number one. But I have the right background. Everything I read says they should want to hire me. But you're not communicating it in your resume, in your networking, in your interviewing, in a way that they understand that. So you're not getting interviews. So I start off with the premise, when I dissect a job search, and I'm trying to understand whether or not where the problem is. I say, if you're not getting interviews, there's a problem with your resume. Your resume and LinkedIn profile are incongruent. You're applying for things that you're not qualified to do, which happens all the time, or you are qualified, but your resume doesn't express it in a way that the system understands. I don't know which one of those may be the case for you, but that's the common way I break down the front end of the process. So given the fact that you're not getting interviews, the likelihood is it's one of those 4 reasons why you're not even getting an interview. What's the most challenging issue or problem you faced? I think this is a generic question. As a people leader, and how do you handle it? Now, usually this is a question that a manager asks. And a manager talks about being a leader, but it's more aspirational than anything. They're not leading, they're managing. So that's my observation of having worked with people for years. So the biggest challenge is around engagement. And to me, the issue around engagement is one of two things: a bad hiring process where disengaged people get through the system and they may have the right skills, but they don't care. They've been defeated and lost their mojo. When you hire, you want to have mojo. You want to hire people who've got juice, who've got their mojo, who care about what they do. Or they arrived with it and the system has ground it out of it, and you don't know how to remove friction in the way of people. One of your jobs as a manager is to eliminate the institutional roadblocks that prevent people from accomplishing what they're hired to do. And if you're not doing that, you are going to lose them emotionally. Yeah, they'll do the job, but without their heart and soul and passion in it. Like if you watch cooking shows at all on TV, one of the things that invariably comes across is the chef, the cook, the line cook, whoever it is, they've lost their heart and it's not showing up on the plate. They're doing stuff robotically and they don't care. You have to find people who care. No care, they do adequate work, but you're not getting their best. So, like a chef, you want to be able to give them great ingredients to work with, a beautiful kitchen, great equipment, lots of good stuff. You'll get more out of them. So that's the problem I see happen time and time again. Institutional friction gets in the way of great people doing great work. And thus they lose the thrill is gone. That's probably the best way I can put it. And you lose their heart, you lose their spirit, you lose their soul. I just got my PMP, which isn't required for my role per se. Can I use this certification as leverage in any upcoming reviews? I have my first performance rule review in Q4. Now, as I'm recording this, we're in the middle of Q1. So we're talking about toward the end of the year. You can bring it up, but by that time, they're going to kind of take it for granted. So just understand, yes, but so what? It's going to be at least a half a year, if not more, before you're going to sit down and say, I got my PMP. That makes me more valuable to you. And by that time, they're not going to care. So you can try, but have no expectations that it's going to have an impact on people. And before I go to the next question, let me just simply say, if you've got a question about your job search, hiring better, management leadership, or want some advice about a particular workplace issue, put it into chat and I'll try and get it answered before I break away at the 30-minute mark today. Because of the speaking engagement I'm doing for a group. Matter of fact, if you want to attend, PSG of Monmouth County is doing something at 10 a.m. today. You might go to their LinkedIn page and get in touch with them to see if they'll let you in for 10 o'clock Eastern today. So again, P like Paul, S like Sam, G like George of Monmouth County is hosting me today, presenting about salary negotiation mistakes. And folks, you guys make lots of them. Let's continue on. How do you know if you were put on the no rehire list of your past company? So, to me, the way you find out if you have a concern about that is you have someone represented employer who calls up your firm and says, we're about to make an offer to so-and-so. What do you think? And one of the questions, and you check a reference or have them check a reference and say, are they eligible to be rehired? And if they so, why is that? It's really that simple. Have someone represent, I put that in air quotes, an organization, and have them check a reference about you. Ask 3 or 4 good questions, or have them ask 3 or 4 good questions, and then see if you're eligible for rehire. That's the simplest way to do it. I know it may seem convoluted, but it really isn't difficult. Next question. How public should my LinkedIn profile be? Personally, I think very public. After all, you want to be discovered. You want people to know about you and the work that you do, what your successes are, how you've impacted your organization, the bottom line, how you've accomplished great things. Because after all, the person who gets ahead isn't always the smartest. They don't always work the hardest, although those are great qualities to have. People get ahead by being alert to opportunity. Sometimes they're internal to an organization. Most of the time, they're external. What LinkedIn sells is access to their database of LinkedIn profiles. They make a lot of money that way. It's not about charging you $49 for a premium account. It's about selling multiple seats to firms that hire or want to sell to you at $7, $10, $15, $20,000 per seat, so that they have access to the entire database and can message you. So you want to have a profile that's keyword rich in the things that you want to be discovered for. If someone was trying to hire someone like you, what would exist in your profile that would make you attractive? You're not sure about that? Look at job ads. See the ones that you're qualified to do. Look at the terminology that's used. Incorporate that into your profile so that this way, when someone's searching on the other side, sorry, I got muted there for some reason. So remember, on the other side of this, LinkedIn wants to sell the ability to find potential employees. And thus, they are selling a service of access to the database, which can be parsed in lots of different ways, like sell products, services, and what have you. But one of the things they sell is a product called LinkedIn Recruiter that allows people to search the database and contact people. So, by all means, be public, be found. This way, opportunities will arrive in your lap. I was ghosted by a well known company after 6 interviews. Should I write to the head of design? I don't think so, but that's your choice. What's going to happen? You're going to tell on these people that they were bad, that they ghosted you? Is that what you're trying to accomplish? And she or he should make them do something different? Like, do you really think they're going to get active and now hire you, given the fact that you've contacted their boss, manager, whomever? No. You might contact HR and simply say, after 6 interviews, I haven't heard anything back. Now, I understand I was probably rejected, but I don't think that was the right way to do it. I think it would serve the organization better, in lieu of ghosting job applicants, to politely say, we chose someone else, or we're continuing to interview and we're not ready to make a decision. Whatever it is, just going dark doesn't represent your firm the best way, and let it go and move on to the next thing. You'll get a profuse apology by someone with limited power and authority who may message these folks and say, stop ghosting people. Just let them know that they're not under consideration anymore, and move on. Okay, so I'm just going to simply say 10 more minutes I'm going to be on because I have some last minute prep, relaxation, and what have you before my speaking engagement at 10. So let's continue on. Do cover letters make your give your application? Let me reread this. Do cover letters make your application get more recognition? Okay. The answer is it's a sales opportunity. It's a sales opportunity that allows you to put relevant information in front of people that will help you get the interview. So, number one is if you're emailing it to someone, don't make an attachment that says cover letter.doc and the other file says resume.doc. Put it into the body of the email. If you're uploading it through an applicant tracking system, instead what you do is make it page one of the resume. As page one of your resume, what you're going to do is flush left, put the requirement and skills sought in the job ad. Flush right, there we go. Flush right, you wind up having listed how long and how recently you've done it. What that does is if you're applying for a job, it stuffs keywords onto page one of your resume so that the applicant tracking system recognizes that you have relevant experience for the role. And thus, the way to do this makes it very clear. Now, does it fast track you? Well, it can fast track you for rejection too. You can get more recognition, but the idea is the cover letter is a chance to briefly sell or point out the relevant skills and qualifications you have for a position that you're applying for, and thus make it easy for busy people to know that your background fits the role. So don't make it a big involved production number, multiple pages. It's page one. That's it. Let me just check one thing for a second, see if there's anything else in chat. Nope, nothing yet. I'm just going to remind everyone, I'm going to be ending this at a quarter to the hour. So if you've got a question for me, please put it into chat. I'd be very happy to answer it. So one more time, please put your questions about job search, hiring better, management, leadership, or questions about a particular workplace issue into chat. This way, what I'm able to do is to answer it today, but I've got to end because of a speaking engagement at a quarter to the hour. Okay, so get it in early. Next question. Let's go to the next question. What should I highlight in my job application? Relevant experience that demonstrates your fit for the role. Now, if you're talking about a physical highlight, like boldface, underlining, italics, bold italics, anything along those lines, don't. Sometimes they interfere with parsing resumes into applicant tracking systems, but too much of that becomes obnoxious to readers. So I always think in terms of on your application, make it obvious how you're qualified to do a job so that this way a 6-year-old could see it. And that will help you get more interviews. Why do companies deny applicants with excellent references, experience, and a positive attitude in favor of the less qualified applicants? So let me start off with the premise of who said they're less qualified than you? How do you know that? Yeah, is it something that, well, let me just stick with how do you know they're less qualified? I know you think you're wonderfully qualified, and that's great, but how do you know they're less qualified? Let's assume for a second, this is point number 2. Let's assume that they are less experienced than you. you may be too expensive for them. And thus, they look at your background. Let's say you've got 15 years and they want to hire a 5-year person. You're not making the money of a 5-year person. You're making significantly more. You become a waste of their time. So think of it from their standpoint. If you're more qualified, you're more expensive. They've got a budget that they have to deal with, and thus they're not going to waste their time to talk to someone with too much experience thinking you might be bored, that you are probably too expensive, and they can't afford you. So those are the two primary reasons. Number one is you're wrong in your self-assessment vis-a-vis your competition. And number two is, let's say you are right. You're too expensive for them, and they know it. Maybe you're coming from an organization where they have a sense of the salary ranges for particular titles, and thus they know you're too expensive for them. Those are the primary reasons. We've got a few more questions for today. And the next one is, how hard is it to decline a job that has a significantly higher pay if you don't feel it's the correct match? My heart goes out to you because you probably have a lot of voices from a lot of people telling you that you're crazy to turn down all this money for what a wonderful opportunity is. Yeah, you'll get used to it. It's no problem. Just get used to it. The money will buy a lot of satisfaction. It does for a week or two. And then you get into the grind of the new role. And it becomes difficult to feel like anything when you're going to work in a job you don't like. It is hard. I don't know how to answer how hard. It is hard to say no to something that in your heart you don't know, that you know is wrong for you. And that's the key part of this. It may be right for someone else, but it's wrong for you. As a result, it's hard to turn it down because the temptation's there. Ooh, look at my hand. Isn't the money wonderful? The money will buy you a lot of happiness. You can buy a new house, go on a wonderful vacation. The kids will get new sneakers. You'll be able to pay for whatever it is. We live in a culture where money's incredibly important. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be important. And it is. And in this particular case, it's not important enough for you to transition to something else, to a job that you don't want to do. So it's hard. Let's get real about it. It's hard. So good luck with the choice that you make. So I'm going to bring this show to a close because I have to be on shortly with someone else. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I hope you enjoyed Career Coach Office Hours for today. I'll be back on Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Eastern with more. I'm going to remind you, visit my website, thebiggamehunter.us, to schedule time for a free discovery call, a coaching session, to visit my blog, which has more than 12,000 searchable posts. Find out about my courses, books, and guides. Also, subscribe to JobSearchTV.com on YouTube and No BS Job Search Advice Radio and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts. So I've got a lot available to help you through my website. Connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/The Big Game Hunter. Mention that you saw this today. Your network will grow a lot once we're connected. And finally, I hope you have a sensational day. And most importantly, be great. See you Tuesday.